This video is sponsored by the Only Sheet 2nd Pro Edition Character Manager. Check out the links in the description to find out more. Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to part 2 of my deep dive into the Oracle class for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you haven't watched the first part already, I highly recommend clicking this link. I will never get used to mirrored imaging on the video, but in that video I go over everything about the Oracle's mysteries, how they work, how their curse works, how you progress the curse, what a revelation and a curse-bound spell is, as well as the first 4 mysteries available to the Oracle class. If you haven't already seen that one, or you didn't quite understand how it all works, I highly recommend you go back and check that video out as a refresher for how they work before progressing with this video, because I'm not going to be explaining a whole lot. We're just going to be diving right in to the last 4 mysteries available to the Oracle. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in with Flames. The mystery of Flames is pretty self-explanatory. You drive your divine power by learning about the mystery of fire, its power, how it works, the plane of fire, everything related to fire. When you take this mystery, you get the permanent benefit of Expert in Reflex saves, which is a solid upgrade. Additionally, when you reach level 13, that Expert increases to Master, and you automatically critically succeed all reflex saves that you normal succeed. This is pretty powerful for an Oracle, as otherwise an Oracle would have no way of getting this high of a reflex save, save for Uncanny Acumen. You become trained in acrobatics, get the Produce Flame cantrip, and start with Incendiary Aura. Additionally, at higher levels, you get the Whirling Flames and Flaming Fusillade revelation spells. You also get an additional revelation spell from either the Fire or Sun domain. Whenever you use any of these spells, you activate the Curse of Engulfing Flames, which means anywhere you look, you see fire and smoke billowing everywhere. They're not actually there, but the way they describe it is cool in that it might be theoretical, metaphorical flames about the burning of the universe, or maybe it's a foreshadowing of flames to come. Your body is also painfully hot to the touch, and you are constantly smoking a little bit. Should you progress your curse to the minor stage, everything more than 30 feet from you is considered concealed, as it's hard to see through all the smoke clouding your vision. You also can't mitigate this effect in any way, so even if you're a barbarian with an Oracle dedication, and you have the feats that give your imprecise scent the ability to ignore the concealed condition, you can't do that with this. It still will not work. If they're more than 30 feet away, enemies are concealed. Not just enemies, all creatures. Should you progress to the moderate stage of the curse, the flames that you are envisioning actually start flicking up randomly around you and sort of sparking all over your body unpredictably. You become concealed to all creatures, as well as all creatures being concealed from you. This also means that anything more than 30 feet away is now considered hidden, as everything close to you is already concealed. Past that 30 feet, all of your senses are considered imprecise, including your sight. The only way around this is any fire spell you cast on a creature within 30 feet ignores the concealed flat check. And finally, in my opinion, the main reason to take this mystery, the Major Curse. The flames and sparks surrounding you engulf you and surround you in an aura of burning fire. At the end of all of your turns, every creature in a 10-foot emanation from you has to make a basic reflex save against 4d6 fire damage. This doesn't cost an action, this is simple as long as they're within 10 feet of you, allies included. Additionally, you're not immune to your own fire, so you lose 1d6 hit points at the end of each of your turns. Should you have a weakness to fire for some reason, you lose additional hit points equal to your weakness. However, even if you have a resistance to fire, it does nothing, because you are not taking fire damage. You are just directly losing hit points. So if you lose 5 hit points and you have 5 fire resistance, it does not affect your hit point loss. You still lose all 5 hit points. Now obviously, you wouldn't want this on at all times until you can refocus, because you'll end up killing your allies. Luckily, for one action, you can suppress the flames enough until the start of your next turn that they don't burn you and they don't burn your allies, but they also don't burn enemies. Additionally, should you be knocked unconscious for any reason, your flames immediately go out. As long as you are unconscious, you do not burn yourself or anyone around you. However, the second you regain consciousness, your flames re-erupt in full force, hurting you and everything around you. The flames do not go out until you begin the refocus activity. They were nice enough that even though technically your curse doesn't revert to the minor stage until you finish refocusing, while using the refocus activity, your flames do not hurt you or those around you. So as long as you can sit there and meditate and focus for 10 minutes, you can stop the flames, return to your minor curse level, and put the flames out entirely until the next time you hit major curse. Alright, let's talk flame focus spells, because that is where this mystery shines. Incendiary Aura. On its own, an okay focus spell. For 2 actions and 1 focus point, you surround yourself in a 10-foot emanation for 1 minute. From then on, every time a creature within the emanation takes fire damage, they catch on fire to take 2d4 persistent fire damage every turn. And remember, you start automatically with the Produce Flame cantrip. So if you're within 10 feet of someone, and you hit this up, and on your next turn you hit them with Produce Flame, well, Produce Flame just got an extra 2d4 persistent fire damage, which will stack should you critically hit with Produce Flame. So if you have Incendiary Aura on at level 1 and you critically hit with Produce Flame, well that's 2d4 fire damage plus 1d4 persistent fire damage from Produce Flame plus 2d4 persistent fire damage from Incendiary Aura. At level 1, 3d4 persistent damage of any kind is really, really strong. Now overall this doesn't scale super well, but it does in a different way. Every 4 levels, at levels 5, 9, 13, etc., the persistent damage goes up by 1d4, but the emanation does grow by 5 feet, so up to a 15-foot emanation and a 20-foot emanation. On its own, this is an okay spell. But couple that with your level 11 Major Curse, and as long as you activate Incendiary Aura and reach your Major Curse level, then think about it. At the end of every one of your turns, everything within 10 feet takes fire damage, which means they guarantee, unless they critically succeed their reflex save, also catch on fire from Incendiary Aura. That is the ultimate AoE fire melt combo of the Flames Oracle. Also, I just searched this because I didn't know off the top of my head, you can choose to exclude yourself from the Incendiary Aura. The way emanations work is you can choose to exclude or include the target source of the aura, which in this case is yourself. So if you want to catch yourself on fire, you can. Totally your call. Now, while Major Curse and Incendiary Aura are sort of the bread and butter AoE combo of the Oracle of Flames, the Whirling Flames spell is just super powerful. For 2 actions and 1 focus point, you throw 2 5-foot bursts that don't overlap, and remember that a burst targets the corner of a square, so a 5-foot burst is actually a 10 by 10 area of 4 squares with it centered in the middle. So this is 2 10 by 10 areas that become engulfed in flames and are basically mini fireballs. All the targets inside get a basic reflex save against 5d6 fire damage. What's really cool about this spell, and makes it more than just mini fireballs, is when it gets heightened. Every 2 spell levels this gets heightened, the damage increases by 3d6, so even heightening it once increases the damage to 8d6, but you also throw out another mini fireball for another 5-foot burst. Yes, these have a much smaller range of explosion than a fireball, but you can choose where to aim these. If enemies are surrounding you, you can throw them out in completely different directions and explode all the enemies specifically. And because they're only 5-foot bursts, it's really easy to avoid your allies. This spell is incredible. Should you heighten this to a 9th level spell at level 17, which it's a focus spell, so it automatically heightens. If you're casting it at that level, it is dealing 14d6 in 5 different 5-foot bursts. And remember, you can combine this with your incendiary aura. If they are within the aura, which is huge at that high level, and they get hit by this, well, guess what? They are catching on fire and taking all this damage. And don't worry about your moderate curse's concealed factor, because this has a range of 30 feet. Not like it matters, because even more, you're not targeting things. You're targeting the ground, which means you don't even need to make a concealed check, even if it wasn't a fire spell. This is an amazing focus spell, y'all. I think when you first get it, it's probably on par with Fireball. A little bit less damage with a little bit more flexibility. Once it heightens even once, this is better than Fireball. Slightly less damage, but just all over the place. On average, you're gonna hit more targets with Whirling Flames than Fireball. And unfortunately, it seems like a recurring theme on these Oracle spells that their capstone focus spell is usually the most underwhelming, you know? The Moonlight Bridge was really good, but overall, kind of a letdown compared to Interstellar Void. Heroic Feat from the Battle Oracle, I hate, and Flaming Fusillade is, again, not a bad spell, just a bit of a letdown. You call upon an endless barrage of flames, and for 2 actions and a focus point, for the next minute, you can cast Produce Flame as a single action. On top of that, you can cast Produce Flame as a free action effectively when you cast this spell. So this spell is sort of 1 action to activate it, 1 action to cast Produce Flame. Really good, right? You can cast Produce Flame 3 separate times. Except, it's not as good as it sounds. We've talked about this in the past, but unfortunately at higher levels, remember you're not getting this until I believe level 11, spellcasters start to get much less accurate than martial classes, specifically because they can't put potency runes on their spells. Additionally, their spellcasting proficiency scales a bit slower than martial proficiency. So while a fighter would already be master in his weapon, 2 levels away from reaching legendary, a spellcaster is probably still at expert. An oracle is still at expert at this point. In fact, they don't become a master spellcaster until level 15. So if we're thinking about that, they're only getting +4 from their proficiency, not counting their level, of course. Produce Flame is a spell attack, which means it incurs a multiple attack penalty. So not only are your spells less accurate to begin with, but they're not agile in any way, so your second Produce Flame is gonna be at -5. Spells like Whirling Flames are amazing because they're saving throws. Even if enemies tend to have really high saving throws, a successful saving throw is still half damage. You can still almost guarantee, unless they roll really well, something's gonna happen. Whereas something like Produce Flame, yeah, it's a cantrip, you'll never run out of it, but if you even normal fail, nothing happens. I think this would be really nice if the heightened effect was on the base spell and gave it to all Produce Flame attacks, even if they normal miss. When it's heightened to 9th level, at level 17, you gain a status bonus to damage dealt by Produce Flame equal to Flaming Fusillade's spell level, which is 9. So at level 17, your Produce Flame deals 9 extra damage. Is it bad? No. But remember, you still have to hit with Produce Flame on these things with astronomical armor class at this level compared to your spell attack rolls. You probably have a 25% chance to hit on your first spell cast. Follow that up on your second spell cast at a -5, and you're looking at a nat 20 or bust. It's unfortunate, but this will almost never be useful. The place this is great is if you're surrounded by low-level enemies, like 2 or 3 enemies 2 or 3 levels below you, just on all sides, and you can Produce Flame, all of them, in your incendiary aura, light them up, and then maybe you're even in Major Curse and just blow up at the end of your turn, dealing massive fire damage around you. But overall, it's not worth the 2 actions to set up. It's not worth the focus point, except to maybe progress your curse, but you would almost always be better off just picking Whirling Flames. Yeah, you get to roll more dice, which is always fun. But unless there was a way to increase the accuracy of spell attack rolls, this is not that useful. The Mystery of Life. Pretty self-explanatory, sort of opposite of the Bones mystery. You just seek the answers to life, how vitality itself exists. Maybe you want to get rid of it, or undermine it in some way, or revere the gods that exemplify it. Again, oracles are super up in the air on how you want to flavor your mystery. The mysteries are almost more like a theme, and you just sort of fill out the details yourself. The life mystery turns the Oracle into an HP tank, and every level you gain 10 plus your constitution from the Oracle class instead of 8. That's the same hit points as a fighter, by the way. You're trained in the medicine skill and gain the stabilize cantrip. At level 1 you begin with lifelink, and then at higher levels you get delay affliction and life-giving form. You also get one additional revelation spell from the death or healing domain. You're also afflicted by the curse of outpouring life. You basically can't stop yourself from your own life force leaking out of you to heal and aid the world around you. Perhaps as you're walking, even as you step somewhere and lift your foot as you're walking, little seeds and grass will grow behind you. Just looking at somebody's wounds can cause them to close and heal up just a little bit, albeit draining the force from your own life. Should you be afflicted by your minor curse, any source of healing against you is reduced by half your level. This is honestly not the worst effect. Even at level 10, if you're being healed for 5 less. This does make lower level healing effects such as treat wounds or level 1 heal spells a lot weaker against you as you grow in level, as if you're level 16, that 1d8 level 1 heal spell is likely not going to heal a single hit point. But overall, as far as minor curses go, this one is not super debilitating. The moderate curse benefits allow for such a cool risk-reward support healing style gameplay. You yourself cannot be healed magically by another creature whatsoever. Any kind of magical healing effect coming from any creature besides yourself does nothing to you. You are still normally healed by any potions, elixirs, and other items, luckily. And if you're knocked unconscious, the game is nice enough to say that your curse kind of fades a little bit while unconscious, similar to the Flames one, and you can be healed, but no matter how much you are healed while unconscious, you are only restored to 1 hit point. The huge, and I'm talking massive benefit of this curse is that all of your D8s from heal spells are increased to D12s. That is an average 50% increase on potential healing. And the higher level heal spell you cast, the more of an effect you see from this. If you cast a level 3 heal spell, you have the potential to heal 3d8 plus 24. Really solid, right? Well, how about 3d12 plus 24? That is a potential 50 hit points healed from a level 3 heal spell. Even more if you can do it in a burst and hit a bunch of people. If you hit 4 targets, including yourself, you're effectively healing for 12d12, granted over multiple targets, and for 1 heal spell. That's amazing. Let's make it better. Whenever you heal a target, you can heal them additional hit points or a different target equal to the spell's level. So if you cast this level 3 heal spell, you automatically heal an additional 3 hit points, either to the target you're trying to heal, or if you already healed them really well, 3 additional hit points to someone else. This kind of supplemental healing is so nice, because being able to heal more than 1 target in a turn is sometimes really difficult. The biggest drawback is that the extra healing from the spell's level cannot be used on yourself. You can still heal yourself normally with your heal spell, but the bonus healing from the spell's level cannot be applied to you. The major curse is such a big benefit for such a really dangerous drawback. And the drawback kind of shows up in some ways you might not expect. Effectively, if you're suffering from your major curse, you cannot control the life energy pouring out of you. Should you cast a level 5 or higher spell that takes 2 or more actions, you automatically, for free, you cannot stop this, cast a 3-action heal spell equal to 4 levels lower than the spell you cast. So should you cast a level 5 2-action heal, you also cast a level 1 3-action heal, healing everybody in a 30-foot burst, including enemies. Keep that in mind. That's one of the drawbacks you might not realize, is that if you are surrounded by enemies and you cast a high-level spell, well, you're also healing all of the enemies, but hopefully all of your allies as well. Additionally, this healing does not affect you, and you lose twice as many hit points as you rolled for the heal spell. So if you cast this level 5 spell and you let out a burst for 7 hit points from a level 1 heal spell, you lose 14. This gets incredibly dangerous at high levels, as if you cast a level 8 spell, then you let loose a level 3 heal spell. And remember, you're rolling d12s. There is a potential, if you cast a level 8 spell, followed by the level 3 heal burst from the major curse, and you roll max, congratulations, you just lost 72 hit points from your curse. The odds of rolling max on 3d12? Low. The odds of rolling at least 20 on 3d12? Pretty positive, pretty average. That's still 40 hit points dealt to yourself just for casting a level 8 spell. There's a reason they give the Oracle of Life additional hit points for their mystery benefit. Lifelink, again, relies on the Life Oracle's bulky hit point pool. For one action and one focus point, you create a link with one creature other than yourself. And it doesn't even say a willing creature, which could lead to some cool moments. You forge a connection of life with them. First off, they recover 1d4 hit points. Not a lot, but something, especially level 1. From then on, any time that creature takes damage, you reduce the damage they take by 3. And you take it instead. And you cannot take more damage than the total damage dealt. So if they take 2 damage, you reduce that by 3, but you only take 2. What's important is it does not carry over the resistance, the weakness, or even the type of damage, or any effects associated with the damage like poison. You just lose hit points. You do not take the damage directly. At levels 5, 11, and 17, this spell does get heightened with some pretty decent effects, albeit really risky for yourself. Each time this gets heightened, you can target an additional creature. You also increase the initial healing by 3d4, pretty solid, and the total damage reduction. But once again, let's look at how scary this is at high level. If you cast this at 9th level, and you attach it to all 4 of your other party members, and you all get caught in a fireball, including yourself, and just for fun, let's say it's a 9th level fireball dealing, 11d6, 12d6 I think it's 12d6 at 9th level. That explodes. You take 12d6 yourself, and then you reduce the damage taken by all of your allies by 15, because we cast this at 9th level. That means you're taking an additional 60 damage on top of your fireball damage. The Life Oracle is doomed to die, and I love it. That is the total flavor. But they just prevented 60 damage from their party. This spell is really, really good. It's just terrifyingly dangerous. Delay Affliction is cool and flavorful, though compared to Lifelink is a lot weaker. For 2 actions and a focus point, you can restore 3d8 hit points to a target, as well as attempt to counteract any single affliction. Now keep in mind that Pathfinder 2e has very specific afflictions, namely diseases and poisons. Things like stupefied and other conditions are not afflictions. I believe curses are also considered afflictions. Effectively, you make a counteract check, which I promise I'll make a video on soon, guys. So many people want me to explain counteracting, like counter spells and stuff like that. It's pretty confusing. But the long and short of it is, you make a spell attack roll against the DC of the affliction. Should you succeed, or even crit succeed, it is suspended for 1 hour. Basically putting it in stasis. It does not remove the affliction, but it does make it so it does not progress, regress, or deal any damage. The downside is that after the hour is up, the disease does return and start working its magic, and unfortunately, after casting it, the target is immune to delay affliction for 1 full day. The nice thing compared to something like a medicine check is you don't even need to know what the affliction is. If you just know the target is suffering from something, you can just delay it for 1 hour. Really solid. Additionally, every time this gets heightened, which is every 2 levels, you heal an additional 1d8 and attempt to suspend an additional affliction. You can just put them all on hold for an hour. This is a really nice kind of caregiving focus spell. It likely wouldn't save a life, but it does buy you some time and puts them at ease for a while. The level 6 focus spell, Life Giving Form, the capstone spell for the Life Oracle, and again, unfortunately, slightly underwhelming. For 2 actions and a focus point, you transcend your physical body for 1 minute. For the next minute, you give off the same amount of light as a torch, gain resistance to precision damage, and a weakness to negative damage, both 5, and your unarmed strikes deal 1d4 positive damage. Woo. The big thing is that if you touch a creature or a creature touches you, you restore 6d8 hit points to it. Really nice. The downside is they become immune to that healing for the next minute. So you can basically heal everybody once with this spell. You also cannot heal yourself this way. What is nice about this is, should you interact with something with negative healing, like a Dhampir or an undead, then along with the 1d4 positive damage your unarmed strikes deal, they also take 3d4 positive damage in addition to that. This also happens should they attack you and touch you in some way. They also are not immune to this for 1 hour, so your unarmed strikes sort of deal 4d4 bonus positive damage against undead. Level 11's focus spell, not the biggest deal, but hey, bonus damage is bonus damage, you know? Every time this is heightened, which is every 2 levels going forward, you increase the healing by 1d8 and increase your resistance and weakness by 1, as well as the positive damage dealt to the undead by 1. That one kind of strikes me as strange. The damage doesn't go up by 1d4, it just goes up by 1. So I suppose the extra, that's referencing the extra positive damage from your unarmed strikes becomes 1d4 plus 1, 1d4 plus 2, which is a really strange way to scale the spell. I think it would have been better off to scale the damage against undead by 1d4 per level. Very weird. So, when looking at this spell, I'm immediately reminded of the divine spell Vital Beacon. Vital Beacon is honestly very similar to this, but in my opinion, a little bit better. Now, where Life-Giving Form is great is that it's a focus spell. It is a focus spell that does a butt-ton of healing, and that cannot be undersold. That is very powerful. However, you do need to cast it first. In combat, typically, and it only lasts for 1 minute. On top of that, you cannot heal the same target multiple times. Whereas Vital Beacon, you cast it during your daily preparations, and from then on, if anyone should ever need the healing, they can touch you or you can touch them whenever you need to and restore, at first, more hit points than this one. This is a level 11 spell that only heals for 6d8. This is a level 7 spell that heals for 4d10, then 4d8, then 4d6, then 4d4, whenever people might need it. Additionally, should this be upcast at the same level as Life-Giving Form, it'll be for 6d10 and 6d8. Again, I cannot say how good enough it is that Life-Giving Form is a focus spell, which means you can cast it, heal everybody for 6d8, refocus, cast it, and do that over and over again, whereas you cannot do that with spell slots. So Life-Giving Form is a fantastic spell. Additionally, though, the resistance, the bonus damage, it's all nice. The more I talk about it, the more I do enjoy this spell. You just need to put focus on, on how repeatable and useful focus spells are. So while they seem similar at first, I do think Life-Giving Form and Vital Beacon do serve different functions, where Vital Beacon is much more reliable, albeit a bit more costly in a full spell slot. Life-Giving Form is great for emergencies and amazing for patching everybody back up after a fight in about 20-30 minutes without even needing to roll for treat wounds. The last bonus of Vital Beacon I'll talk about is just that you can heal yourself with it, whereas Life-Giving Form cannot help yourself. Whew boy, 45 minutes in and I've covered 2 mysteries! The mystery of lore, kinda self-explanatory. You want to make your brain as big as possible. Not necessarily. You're more interested in the mystery of lore and record keeping, and the mystery of knowledge in and of itself. I'll be honest, the lore mystery benefit got me for a split second. I was like, wait a second. No way. You get an additional spell of every level, but then I realized it's not an extra spell slot, it's an additional spell of each level, which, for a spontaneous caster, 1 additional spell in your repertoire per level is huge. I don't want to undersell this. You usually only get, I believe, 3 spells of each level? Yeah, you usually only get 3 spells of each level that you can have memorized at any time. So this gives you a whole 4th spell, which can incredibly diversify you. Plus, it's for every spell level. At the end of the game, that's 9 additional spells in your repertoire. 10 if you really get that far and get more than 1 10th level spell. You become trained in both occultism and an extra lore skill. You gain the Read Aura cantrip and start with the Brain Drain Revelation spell. More on that in a bit. But you also get Access Lore and Dread Secret. These sound really cool. I haven't read them yet. You also get a revelation spell from the Knowledge and Truth domains. Oracles with the mystery of lore become afflicted by the curse of torrential knowledge. Your tiny, mortal brain is not enough to withstand the knowledge of the multiverse. In fact, you're going so crazy that you see droplets of water, little things of ice, little tiny details transform into fancy, unintelligible runes and arcane sigils around you while afflicted by the curse. Additionally, sometimes you mutter to yourself in languages you don't even speak without realizing it. The minor curse is honestly not that bad. You take a -4 penalty to initiative, which does suck, but once battle's started, at least that doesn't affect you anymore, and hopefully you don't have this curse until you're in battle. The moderate curse is a lot worse of a penalty, and also kind of an okay reward. It's tough for me to balance this. The downside is your brain is so big and heavy that you're always permanently flat-footed so long as your curse is moderate or higher. The upside is you can make a free recall knowledge check every single turn, however it is always with assurance, basically meaning 10 plus proficiency, no other bonuses or penalties. So it'll probably never ever be a critical success, but you can just still identify everything you're fighting pretty reliably. The major curse is really, really painful, and unfortunately the major curse is almost entirely roleplay related. You understand all languages, flat out, but you can't talk. You can't use any kind of linguistic effect, you can't communicate with your allies, and any spell with a verbal component has a 25% chance of just being lost. On the upside, you gain a +4 against linguistic effect saving throws. That's really brutal, I'll be honest. Losing the ability to speak is not good. I guess you can write? It doesn't say you can't write. So just have a whiteboard or something as long as you're under the major curse. Before we even go into the focus spells, it's clear to see that this is designed as a roleplay heavy curse. You gain a lot of bonuses outside of combat, but the in-combat stuff is pretty painful. Let's check out the focus spells. Brain Drain is okay, honestly. For 2 actions and 1 focus point, you target 1 creature within 30 feet. They make a basic will save against 1d8 mental damage. Should they fail, you get to sort through their memories and make a free recall knowledge check using their skill modifier. I don't like how this is done. Chances are, if you're building a character around the lore mystery, your skill checks are higher than theirs already. The 1d8 damage is fine, I guess, but their skill modifier isn't gonna work super well. Hopefully, you'll have a nice DM and say, the DC is gonna be way lower, because ideally you're searching for something they already know. Hopefully the more specific of a thing you're searching for in the target's memories would be easy to glean. If the target was just reading a secret book, and you brain drain to try to find out what they were reading, hopefully the DC wouldn't be that high to access their recent memories in the last 5 minutes. It's worded weird and definitely needs some GM adjustment on the DC, because otherwise, your skill modifier will almost always be higher than theirs. Access lore, depending on your table, is really good. For 1 action and a focus point, you sift through the knowledge of the multiverse. You become trained in 1 specific lore skill of your choice for 1 minute. Really good. Additionally, you become proficient equal to your spellcasting proficiency. So if you're a master spellcaster, you can become a master in any lore you want. All you need is a focus spell. This is honestly really, really powerful. If you're trying to figure out something, some kind of puzzle, and you specifically need knowledge of the city of Kibwe and the Mwangi Expanse to enter a code to open a chest, well, you can just use access lore and become a trained or expert or even master or legendary in lore Kibwe right then and there for 1 minute. Which, additionally, on top of just being a really high proficiency bonus, is also going to be a lower DC, because lore is sort of used to be more specific for an easier DC target. It's not a bad spell, and it definitely just goes right into, like I was saying, where the lore oracle, or the loracle, that's stupid, cut that out, is entirely roleplay focused and not heavy in the combat. Dread Secret is the coolest capstone spell I've read today. For 2 actions and 1 focus point, you target up to 6 creatures within 60 feet of you. Applying to all of the targets, you select either 1 weakness or 1 resistance you think or know they have. Should you select a weakness and they only normal succeed their will save, they take 1 damage of the weakness type. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but then you remember that a weakness in 2E increases all damage you take by the amount of the weakness. So if they have weakness fire 10, and you deal 1 fire damage with Dread Secret, they actually take 11. And again, if you are targeting multiple creatures and they all share that weakness, well, bam, huge damage to all of them. Maybe not huge, but good damage to all of them. Alternatively, if you select one of their resistances, such as resistant to fire, then until the end of your next turn, they lose that resistance entirely. They are no longer resistant to fire. This means you can make a fire elemental take fire damage. I guess that's not true. You can't remove an immunity. You can only remove a resistance. Part of me wishes the fail and critical failure effects were a little more interesting, but they're still really good. Should they fail their saving throw, they become frightened 1 on top of the success effects. Should they critically fail, they become frightened 3, which is really powerful. Frightened is a terrifying, no pun intended, condition, and it only goes down by 1 per round. So is this the strongest focus spell in the game? No. Whirling Flames is better than this, and that's a level 3 focus spell for the Flames Oracle. But is this really, really cool and dripping with flavor? Yes. Plus, this combines so well with the Mystery Oracle's Recall Knowledge ability. You recall knowledge, you learn of a weakness or a resistance, and you use it against them. So freaking cool. And remember that Access Lore can be used in combat. If you're fighting trolls for the first time and your characters don't know what a troll is, well, good news. You can use Access Lore to get lore trolls. And then it's so specific, the DM should DMs reward lore use, reduce the DC really low because you now know a ton about trolls specifically. You combine that with Brain Drain on the same turn to deal damage and make a free recall knowledge check, and on the following turn you cast Dread Secret to either deal a bunch of damage or completely remove their resistances. There is some amazing synergy among these focus spells in combat for a non-combat focused Oracle Mystery. Oh my god, I worded that entire ending so it would be such a clean ending, and I forgot there was another one! Are you kidding me? How many? How are there so many mysteries? The mystery of Tempest, your mystery is the wind and the whoosh and the whoo and the plains of air and water. The mystery benefit is pretty solid. You are never hindered by winds or waters. If your perception check should ever take a penalty, or something should be concealed from you due to heavy winds or dark murky waters, you completely ignore those penalties and look at your full bonus. Additionally, should you ever deal physical damage with an air or water spell slot spell, you deal an additional 1 electric damage per spell level. Not amazing, but, extra damage. I think this would be really cool if it at least added 1 damage to cantrips. Plus 1 damage on electric arc would add up. You become trained in nature, and guess what? You get electric arc. Shocking no one. I swear these... I meant that pun halfway through it, but up until right before I said it, I did not plan it. I'm just full of puns today. I don't understand. I apologize. You begin with the Tempest Touch Revelation spell and eventually get Thunderburst and Tempest form, as well as another Revelation spell from the air or water domains. You are also afflicted by the curse of the Perpetual Storm. You are basically always the center of your own personal natural disaster. Even when you're calm and not overactive, your hair and clothes, similar to the Cosmos mystery, are always sort of flitting about, and the more intense you as a person get, like in combat or a heated encounter, the more intense your personal storm gets, which is awesome. This is probably the least detrimental minor curse of all of them, in my opinion. Your aura of a whirling storm around you sort of whips up, and everything in a 5-foot emanation gets put out. Any non-magical fire gets put out 1 round after they're brought into the area. The only other detriment is you gain 2 weakness to electricity, and any spell that would have bonus effects from you wearing any kind of metal or holding metal automatically apply those effects to you, even if you're not touching metal. The moderate curse provides some decent defense, but is still kind of an underwhelming effect overall. The aura from the Minor Curse expands to 10 feet, still putting out fires, but there's also a -2 circumstance penalty applied to any ranged attack using ammunition that either comes from you or towards you. So basically any ranged weapon takes a -2. Your weakness to electricity increases to 5 or half your level, depending on which is larger, but you now gain an equal amount of resistance to fire because it has started to downpour rain around you. The Major Curse is fantastic, as there is no detriment to you at all. Your party, maybe so. The aura around you grows to a 15-foot emanation, which I may remind you is a 30 by 30 square, and everything in that 30 by 30 square is considered difficult terrain for any large or smaller creature, including your allies, but not including you. You are not affected by the difficult terrain whatsoever. It's even difficult terrain for huge or smaller flying creatures around you. On top of this, the electricity begins physically flowing through your body, so any creature that hits you with a touch spell or melee unarmed attack takes 1d6 electric damage. I know it doesn't say this, but as a GM, I would allow that to affect attacks from metal weaponry too. If someone hits you with a greatsword or a battle axe while you have this, I would allow them to take the electric damage. It's level 11 and it's 1d6. That's not game breaking, that's just cool. Tempest Touch is really neat. For one action and one focus point, you can touch one creature, and they get a fortitude save. Should they critically succeed, nothing happens. Should they normal succeed, they take 1/2 of 2d4, which is 1d4 bludgeoning and 1d4 cold damage, and a -5 circumstance penalty to its movement speeds until the end of your next turn. Should they fail, they take the full 2d4, as well as a -10-foot circumstance penalty to speeds until the end of your next turn. That's huge. When everything only has roughly a 25-foot move speed on average, subtracting 10 from that is nasty. The critical failure unfortunately does not increase the movement speed penalty, but does increase the damage to double, so effectively 4d4 damage, and every time this is heightened, both of those are heightened by a d4. So at level 3, this deals 4d4, 8d4 on a crit. This scales incredibly well by 2d4 per 2 levels. That's really solid. Thunderburst is effectively Sound Burst as a focus spell. For 2 actions and a focus point, you can target a 20-foot burst anywhere within 100 feet away. Everything inside gets a fortitude save. Should they critically succeed, they take no damage. Should they normal succeed, they take 2d6 bludgeoning and 2d6 sonic, halved. Should they fail, they take the full damage and are deafened for 1 minute on a normal failure, which is really brutal. And should they critically fail, they take double damage and deafened for an hour. That is 8d6 damage on a critical failure at level 6. Level 5 maybe, I don't know exactly the level that you get this. That's really good. And additionally, every 4 levels, when it gets heightened, the area is increased by 5 feet, and each type of damage is increased by 2d6. That is a 4d6 damage upgrade, granted, every 4 levels. But that does mean as early as level 9, and you cast this, you are dealing 8d6 damage, doubled to 16d6 should they critically fail, to a bunch of targets. Really good. I think I still prefer Whirling Flames, but this is a close second as far as just pure damage output. Tempest form, again with the capstone spells, slightly underwhelming. Is it bad? No. Is it amazing? No. For 2 actions and 1 focus spell, you can change your body into either pure air, pure mist, or pure water. Everything about you changes, including your armor, and you lose any item bonus to armor class, and you start using your unarmored proficiency bonus for your armor class. So your armor class is going to shoot down to the toilet. Luckily, you do gain resistance 10 to physical damage and immunity to precision damage, but this doesn't save you from any kind of magical damage. This makes you a sitting duck for spell attack rolls. On the upside, you don't need to breathe, and no matter which form you pick, you can slip through tiny cracks. Similar to Ancestor's form, you cannot attack or cast spells or manipulate or use items or anything like that. You're very much in a state of inactivity, but you do gain some specific abilities depending on your type. If you changed into air, you gain a 20-foot fly speed, and you become invisible while in the air, which is a really big advantage. Additionally, you can effectively cast Gust of Wind at will for 2 actions every single turn. Not too bad, just being able to control the battlefield, maybe knock some people prone. If you turn into Mist, you also gain a 20-foot fly speed, and you don't become invisible, but it actually becomes hard to see through you. This one's really, really specific, but should somebody be attempting to target a creature who is directly on the opposite side of you, that creature is concealed. This is so freaking niche, but maybe if they have like a catapult, and you just stand in front of the catapult and they choose not to shoot you, they're concealed for their attack. That's all it does. And water, which in my opinion is probably the coolest, you gain a swim speed of 20 feet and become invisible while in the water. At any time while you're made of water, you can spend 1 action to electrically charge yourself. If you do this, you are no longer considered invisible in the water, as the arcing electricity reveals your location and somehow does not spread through the rest of the water, which I'm disappointed in. Additionally, any creature that strikes you in melee takes 1d6 electric damage. It stacks with your curse, which is nice. So if someone hits you with a melee strike, they take 2d6 electric, which I guess is pretty okay. But this is level 11. Every 4 levels after this, at levels 15 and 19, you increase your resistance by 5 and increase the electricity damage from the water electric spike damage by 1? That has to mean 1d6. You're telling me that if I cast this 2 levels higher as an 8th level spell, the damage from being punched while I'm electric water goes from 1d6 to 1d6 plus 2? I refuse to believe that. That has to mean by 1d6 and has to be a typo. I can only assume. And that is all of the Oracle mysteries in the Advanced Player's Guide. Good lord, that took forever. This was just the other 4 mysteries and it took me an hour and 15 minutes. Lord, how did this take longer than the first part? I don't know. I'm so happy I split this into 3 parts though, y'all. Holy cow. But I hope you understand your options as an Oracle now. Man, showing this to a new player, or even just a player who's never read the Oracle before, they have no idea what they're getting into. Even at this point, where I've been studying this class for about 4 or 5 hours total now, I'm like, I think I get it, but there's so much potential synergy I'm probably missing, so many combos within each mystery and their curses and their revelation spells. There's so much to take in, and we still haven't talked about the class features. Alright guys, I'm gonna go edit this and get this prepared to upload tomorrow for Monday. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my patrons right over there. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you're interested in supporting me, there's a link to my Patreon down in the description. I want to thank TOS 2nd Pro Edition for sponsoring all 3 episodes of the Oracle here. They've been really great for supporting the channel, really great to work with. There are also links in the description to the Only Sheet, as well as to my Discord and my Twitter. Thank you so much for watching, y'all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.